Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something that honestly blew my mind when I really started looking into it: the actual plumbing of the crypto universe. We are talking about cross-chain bridges. We'll look at how your assets actually move from one blockchain to another and, spoiler alert, the massive risks involved in making that happen. Look, if you've ever moved crypto around, you have definitely interacted with this tech, and as we're going to see, you might have been unknowingly trusting some of the absolute riskiest software ever written. So let's just dive right into this.
$2.5 billion. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the staggering amount of money hackers have stolen from crypto bridges so far. $2.5 billion. Most of us, we just click bridge, pay our little gas fee, and literally just pray the funds show up on the other side. We have zero idea what's actually happening under the hood. Well, today, we're fixing that. In this space, knowledge is pretty much the only real insurance policy you've got. By the end of this explainer, you're going to know exactly how to protect yourself. I want to start with this incredibly powerful metaphor from our source material, because it just perfectly captures the core problem with blockchains right now. Think about it. You can't just send Bitcoin to the Ethereum network the way you'd shoot off a quick email. It doesn't work like that. Blockchains, by their very design, completely ignore each other. They're isolated islands. So to move money between them, we have to build these ships, the bridges. And unfortunately, as that $2.5 billion figure clearly shows, these ships have a terrible habit of sinking. A lot.
All right, Section 1. Chains are isolated islands, the multi-chain problem. If bridges are this incredibly dangerous, why on earth do we even use them? Why not just build one giant blockchain that does everything?
Well, it actually boils down to blockchain isolation. And believe it or not, this is an intentional design choice. The Bitcoin network only cares about Bitcoin. Ethereum only cares about Ethereum. And honestly, for security, that is fantastic. If some massive bug completely breaks Solana, it can't accidentally print a million fake ETH on Ethereum, because Ethereum can't even read Solana's data. It isolates the risk. But here's the catch. While isolation equals great security, it absolutely destroys the user experience. If you have USDC sitting on Ethereum, but you really want to buy an NFT over on Solana, you're stranded on an island. Bridges are the necessary roads that solve this whole multi-chain problem. Basically, if we don't have roads, we can't trade.
Moving to Section 2, how bridges actually work, the plumbing behind the ships. What's super interesting here is we're going to completely strip away all that confusing crypto jargon and just look at the actual mechanics. What physically happens when you hit that bridge button?
Okay, let's walk through the most common model out there, the lock and mint bridge, step by step. Say you want to move one ETH over to Solana. Step 1, you send your ETH to a specific bridge contract on the Ethereum network. Step 2, the bridge locks that ETH inside a vault so it can't move. Step 3, a group of validators sees your ETH is safely locked up and they sign a digital message confirming it. And finally, Step 4, based on that message, a brand new token is minted on Solana called wrapped ETH. To go back, you just do it in reverse. Burn the wrapped token, unlock the original. But guys, here is the terrifying part. That lock contract back in Step 2, it's holding billions of dollars from thousands of users all at once. It is quite literally the ultimate honeypot for hackers.
And this comparison right here brilliantly highlights the difference between that classic, risky model and a much safer alternative called burn and mint. So lock and mint leaves that giant, hackable honeypot of locked funds sitting there and just gives you a wrapped IOU token. But burn and mint, which is what systems like Circle's CCTP use for USDC, actually destroys the asset on the first chain and then mints a brand new native asset on the second chain. There is absolutely no pool of locked funds just sitting around waiting to get drained. It's so much safer because the honeypot simply doesn't exist.
We also have to quickly touch on a third option, liquidity networks. Stuff like Across or Stargate, these don't mint wrap tokens at all. If you want USDC on Arbitrum, you just drop your USDC into a pool on Ethereum, and a market maker simply wires you native USDC from their own pre-existing stash on Arbitrum. It is basically just a cross-chain swap. No fake tokens are ever minted, which totally removes that massive infinite minting risk.
So, how do we know who to trust? This table is crucial for understanding your actual risk. Up at the top, the absolute riskiest are multi-sig bridges. This is literally just a small group of people, sometimes just 5 keys, controlling billions in a lock contract. No thanks. A step down, we have external validators, like Wormhole. Here, you're trusting a network of maybe 100 nodes, still pretty high risk. Then we get to optimistic bridges, relying on fraud proofs, getting much better. Below that, ZK-like clients. These use pure, unbreakable math and cryptography. Very low risk, but the tech is still pretty new.
And finally, at the bottom, your absolute safest bet. Native L2 bridges, like the Arbitrum bridge. These directly inherit the rock-solid security of Ethereum itself.
Section 3. The $2.5 billion problem. Why the ships keep sinking. Let's raise the stakes a bit. Why exactly do these multi-layered, heavily funded projects keep failing so spectacularly?
When you look at this chart, the scale of the honeypot problem becomes absolutely terrifying. Look at this. The Ronin bridge got hit for $625 million. The BNB bridge, $570 million. Wormhole lost $325 million in a single exploit. Hackers are endlessly motivated to find a way in because just one tiny bug can mean a multi-hundred-million-dollar payday. A bridge is just so complex. You're dealing with two different chains, relayers, validators, multisigs. It literally has 10 times the attack surface of a normal decentralized exchange.
But here is the craziest part, and this genuinely shocked me. Most of these hacks, they aren't some impossible math problem being solved. They are basic human and structural errors. That $625 million Ronin hack, a simple multi-sig compromise. Hackers literally just fished 5 out of 9 guys who held the validator keys. The Wormhole hack was a messaging bug that let the attacker fake a signature and just infinitely print money. And then you have the nightmare of instant contract upgradability. The Nomad bridge lost $190 million simply because a rushed routine upgrade accidentally set a security check to 0. Literally anyone could just ask the bridge for money and it gave it to them.
Section 4. Red flags and risks. Spotting danger before you sail. All right, knowing everything we just covered, what should you actually look for? How do you spot these traps before you send a single dollar?
First, you have to absolutely drill this into your brain. Wrapped assets are just IOUs. That is it. When you hold wrapped ETH on Solana, you do not actually own ETH. You own a digital receipt claiming you have the right to some real ETH locked in a vault back on Ethereum. Remember that giant honeypot? If a hacker drains that vault on Ethereum, the real ETH is completely gone. And instantly, like in the blink of an eye, that digital receipt you're holding on Solana becomes entirely worthless. It goes straight to 0. You carry all of that bridge's risk the entire time you hold that wrapped token in your wallet.
Which brings us to Section 5, your bridge safety playbook, navigating the danger. We've talked about the scary stuff, but now I want to give you a highly practical, step-by-step survival guide.
Think of this as your 5-minute pre-flight checklist. Running through this could literally save your entire portfolio. First up, check a site called L2Beat to see the actual risk stage of the network. Second, check the total value locked, the TVL. You want the Goldilocks zone. Avoid bridges with under $100 million because they're too new and untested, but also be super careful with untested bridges holding over $5 billion because they are massive targets. Third, make sure they have audits from heavy hitters like Trail of Bits. Fourth, check for a 48-hour upgrade time lock. Guys, if a developer can upgrade the code instantly, they can steal your money instantly. And finally, the golden rule. Always send a $20 test transaction first.
You also need to scale your safety protocols based on how much money you're moving. We call this the risk ladder. Moving under $1,000? Fine. Use almost any fast liquidity network. If it gets hacked, you lose dinner money. But jumping from $1,000 to $100,000? Stick strictly to native L2 bridges or the top-tier audited external ones. $100,000 to $1 million. Native L2 only. Even if it means waiting 7 whole days for the transaction to clear. And if you are moving over $1 million, don't even use a bridge. Send it to a centralized exchange and withdraw it directly to your target chain. As our source puts it, if losing the money would ruin your life, do not put it through a bridge.
But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. There is a ton of hope on the horizon. The whole ecosystem is slowly building towards a future where this dangerous plumbing is completely hidden from you. Things like Circle's CCTP are making transfers entirely native and poolless. Zero-knowledge like clients are replacing those flimsy human multisigs with hardcore math. And then you have things like Aguilar's, which try to unify chains so perfectly that as a user, you don't even realize you're bridging. Your wallet just routes everything automatically, and those massive honeypot risks are engineered completely out of existence.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer. I want to leave you with a thought to chew on. Will the multi-chain future eventually be entirely bridgeless? As all this infrastructure gets better at hiding the complex, dangerous mechanics, we really might hit a point where moving crypto between blockchains is as safe and easy as handing a $20 bill to a friend. But hey, until that day comes, use the playbook, respect the honeypots, and stay safe out there. Thanks so much for hanging out and learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.